Brilliant. So we will start. Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Ellis Wadsworth, and I'm a community executive here at HackerJob. And today I'm going to be the moderator of the event with the Home Office, Transforming Digital and Public Services. Just a little housekeeping before we get started. If you have any questions during the presentations, please type them into the Q&A function in the Teams control bar, and I will bring them up at the end of today's presentation, webinar. We've got a 10 to 15 minute slot at the end to go through your Q&A questions. So without further ado, we'll get started. First and foremost, I just wanted to go through today's agenda. So first and foremost, I will give an overview of Home Office Digital Data and Technology, what they do and how they work. And then I'll hand over to Samir, who is a Principal Quality Assurance and Test Delivery Owner at the Home Office. And then we'll be hearing from Aaron, who is a lead software engineer at the Home Office, and he'll be presenting on protecting vulnerable children. And then finally, we'll hear from Alice and Amra from the Home Office recruitment team, giving us an overview of applying for a role at the Home Office. And then we'll get into our Q&A section, and then we'll sort of close up around 2 o'clock. So I'll just get to the next slide. Cool. So the Home Office's overall mission is to build a safe, fair and prosperous UK. It's the lead government department for immigration and passports, drug policy, crime, fire, counter-terrorism and policing. To give you an idea of the impact, every day Home Office's system supports over 3 million visa applications, checks on 100 million border crossings, 8 million passport applications and 140 million checks on people, vehicles, property and property. And all of this work is underpinned by the technical team who design, build and maintain these critical systems. The Home Office's culture is inclusive, progressive, and they value the unique contributions everyone makes. The department are committed to representing modern Britain in all of its diversity, creating a welcoming workforce where people can bring their whole selves to work. In regards to their tech strategy, it's also clear in what they work in an agile product, user-centered teams with cloud native and interdisciplinary working as the focus. Digital inclusion, accessibility, and forming a technical community across departments are also important there. The main digital data tech hubs are in Manchester, Glasgow, Sheffield, and Croydon. More will be covered about employee benefits later on in the talk, but to name a few, in the digital data and tech profession, they offer a competitive starting salary for your grade, learning and development opportunities relevant to your role, an additional allowance of up to £13,700 for candidates with exceptional skills and experience, a civil service pension with employer contribution, an environment with flexible working options, and many, many more. And it will be covered later on in the presentations. And ways of working at the Home Office. So agile methodologies, multidisciplinary teams, user-centered, national scale projects with data-driven products, cutting-edge technologies, and hybrid flexible working. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over to our first speaker, Samir, a Principal Quality Assurance and Testing Delivery Owner at the Home Office. A bit about Samir: he's got over 29 years of professional experience in the private and public sector, spanning multiple geographies and multiple business domains, including global banks, insurance companies, media companies, and startups. And Samir is currently working, as I said, as a civil servant with the Home Office as a Principal QAT Delivery Owner. Samir, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you very much, Ellis, and good afternoon to everyone. As Ellis mentioned, I will give you a brief glimpse of what it looks like to be part of the quality assurance and testing business unit, as we have within Home Office. So if you move to the next slide, when anyone talks about testing or quality assurance, the first thing that comes into mind is, oh, I will have some document that I have to read, and I have to think of some magic test cases and start banging the keyboard, right? And that is where there is a far more evolved role that we play in home office. So if you look at it, the first statement that I have on the slide is QAT is all about risk management, including assessment of those risks. Now, why? Why is it all about risk? So just think of it in a different way. If any software that is developed, we are happy to roll it into production, and we are happy of any consequences that it will have. We don't need any quality assurance. We don't need any testing. The reason why the quality assurance and testing is required is because we cannot afford to roll out the systems or put things into production that will fail, because that can have some not so good consequences. Simple example again, the border control systems that we have. So when you land at the airport and come out using the immigration, whether it is automated systems that you use or you go to the person or the border officer, all these systems are the ones that we, as in Home Office digital data and technology team, manage and work on. So just imagine if that system fails, what happens? These things become the headline of Guardian every time. And that is why we need to make sure we manage all the risks, we assess them, and we also identify them as soon as possible. So simple things like the requirements do come in agile methodology. You may or may not know the things are based on stories. Now, if a story comes in, but there is no defined acceptance criteria that can be evaluated in a concrete and measurable fashion, obviously that's not a good quality story, because that's what the end user is going to see. So our role starts right then there, where we question, oh, by the way, this story does not have the proper acceptance criteria. We can't evaluate it. We is home office. We is not just one person or a team. It is the collective of the people delivering this. Now, when we are, oh, someone needs to go on mute, please. Okay, thank you. So when you look at it, there are multiple factors that impact the risk that come into play. It may be technical, it may be environmental, it may be policy related, it may be a legislative thing that we have to deliver. And if it fails, you can imagine the consequences. So when we look at it, we assess it completely thoroughly, why we need to test, what we need to assure or test, where, what environment, who will do this, when we'll do it, how we will do it. That whole plan needs to come to life if we have to deliver critical systems like border control or policing or anything, including, say, visa. If you apply for your visa, and by the way, you may know the UK VI visa application system or passport application system is one of the best in the world. And this is not what we are saying. This is what the other countries' immigration and passport officers are saying. So something that we have certainly delivered. Now, when there are risks that we cannot nullify or fix or eliminate, then we think of mitigations. What if this happens? How will we take care of these things? How will we make sure that it doesn't get out of control? Because there will be things that you just cannot fix. Maybe timeline, maybe various other dependencies. So all these things are part of the quality assurance and testing as the department. Elise, can you move to the next one, please? Now, to take care of all these functions, we do have various different roles. We call them as job families. So one is the analyst job family. The next is test engineering, which is predominantly focusing on the automation of testing that we do. Then there is delivery owner job family. Now, delivery owner, by the name itself, you can understand it is going to be more of the management side, but this is not people management. So please do not misunderstand. This is a hands-on role, including me. So I am the principal QAT delivery owner. I am accountable and responsible for everything we do from QAT perspective for a very large portfolio within home office. We have mission critical systems, very complex, but I cannot say, oh, here are my 20 people and they will do everything and I'm just putting my leg up and sitting in my chair, right? That is not the role that I have. I have to be there every day, rolling up my sleeves, getting into the details and making sure that every program that we are delivering is delivered in a right manner. There are a lot of push and pulls that happen because not everyone may understand the impact of the potential failure. So there is part of my role where I need to educate the right stakeholders to understand what if this happens, this is what the impact will be. Are we all collectively accepting it? If yes, fine, no need to do anything. But if not, here is what we have to do. So it is all about making sure that we collectively deliver the systems that are working, meeting what is the expectation or requirements, and at the same time safeguarding production. Because we can't say, oh, we are delivering new system today, whatever is in production stops working from tomorrow. It doesn't go that way. Right? So we have to protect the production and upgrade, enhance, or for that matter, deliver a completely new system and then retire the old system, right? So all these things do matter. All these things do come into play. And that is where our role is to make sure we literally, pick up everything that we see. If we don't find the right information, go and ask for it, hunt for it, work with our delivery partners, work with our suppliers, and make sure they also understand why we need certain things, right? Simple example, resilience or the system shutdown restart. If there are not acceptable things available in the system, we just can't go ahead because we need to have everything in order to make sure if something goes wrong, we have already tested the recovery. We have already tested the steps that we need to take to make sure the system comes back to life and starts performing again. So a lot of these things go into the QAT side of it. And what I was referring to just now is the last point on this slide, operational acceptance testing. It is extremely critical to assess, to assure, to test these things, whereby if something goes wrong, we have a clear path to recovery. So all these things are divided in various different roles. Again, there are opportunities to move across the job families. It is not that once you are an analyst till you retire. That's not how we work. There is a very clear pathway to move across the job families. And Elise, if you move to the next slide, I can explain that a bit better. So now if you look at it, the continuous professional development, which is nothing but upskilling each one of us on an ongoing basis. Now, this is the point that I was referring to. If you are an analyst and you want to be a test engineer, which means you need to learn programming, we do have proper pathway, including what trainings the individual should be taking or should be undergoing. And then we support them with so-called test engineering community within QAT, because we do have a lot of civil servants who want to take the experience to widen their overall knowledge. So some test engineers say, oh, I want to get into operational acceptance testing. Can I do that? Oh, I want to do performance. Can I do that? Yes, obviously you can. So it is not where a person joins in one role and that's it, end of story, you will retire here, you can't move. That is certainly not the case. We encourage people, all my team members, I personally do that, my colleagues do that you should broaden your experience. You should know what is happening in other side of the world. You should certainly know where the world is going, because what we do today is not going to be there tomorrow. The technology changes so fast. Now we are talking of AI and ML, and now people are already worried about, oh, is AI going to be the next doomsday? Right? So all these things are happening, and we need to keep abreast with all these things. And that's the reason we encourage the continuous professional development. Just last point before I hand it back to Ellis. The question that we typically get is, oh, so is there any minimum qualification that I need to have if I have to join QAT? The good part of this is IT is the only industry where there is no qualification or minimum qualification required. Every other profession that you look at, if you think of medicine, lawyers, banking, accounting, you will need some kind of qualification to reach certain levels. But IT is pure what can you do and what your capabilities are. No minimum qualification. But if you want to get certified, yes, we obviously encourage that, we do support that, and we do have those trainings and courses that we offer here. So that's all about how we make sure our civil servants are always keeping pace with what is happening in the industry. So Alice, if you can move to the next one. And that's all from me.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for that, Samir. And now we're going to hear from Aaron, who is a lead software engineer at the Home Office. So Aaron has experience working across a variety of teams and technologies, including Java, .NET, and low-code automation tools such as Microsoft Power Platform. So within Aaron's role, he works with developers and other digital data and tech professions to deliver great services for the organization and UK citizens. Aaron, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Brilliant, thanks, Ellis. Yeah, so as Ellis mentioned, I'm a lead software engineer in the Automation Centre, which is a small team in the Home Office. And it's a bit of a misleading name because we do focus on automation, but we also focus on low code and rapid development as well. And before that, I've worked on teams which cover things like Home Office forms. So if you've ever submitted a passport application online, for example, on the Gov.uk website, tools like that. And I've also worked on some more internal correspondence systems as well. So on the next slide, I want to just give a little bit of context because I want to give an example of the kind of projects that we work on in the Home Office and a flavour of what we do. So this particular example is focusing on vulnerable children, or UASCs as we refer to them, which is unaccompanied asylum-seeking children. And these are young people that have come to the UK by a variety of means. So it could be on the small boats across the channel, they could have been smuggled or trafficked, and they're here without any sort of responsible guardian or parents. And so what happens to these children is they get put into care across the UK, so England, Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland. And then we need to provide funding to these local authorities. So these local authorities submit data to us to say which children they've got in their care and a variety of data such as dates, ages, things like that. We at the Home Office take that data, we calculate funding, and then we give that money back to the local authorities. So this system is really important, first and foremost, because we're provisioning care for these vulnerable people, but also because you'll have seen in the news, local authorities go bankrupt and things like that. It's really important that we get this money back to local authorities so they can continue to provide the services that are vital. So in this case, it was a replacement system we needed to build. It was currently running on Microsoft Access. And I can almost hear the groans from developers as I say that. It won't surprise you to know that it was running very, very slowly. It kept crashing and corrupting data. And so the business approached us to see if we could generate a replacement system as quickly as we could for this failing one. So on the next slide, I detail the approach. So as I mentioned, this was a really high priority project. We needed to get something to the business so they could continue providing this funding functionality. So we put together a multi-profession team. So this was made up of people like QAT team, content designers, business analysts, to gather the requirements as quickly as we could, but also to make sure that we were going to build something that was useful and met the criteria. The next step then is to define what our MVP was. So at the Home Office, we encourage working in an agile and iterative way. So we wanted to make sure we could deliver something that would be useful, but without taking forever to build it and then just deploying it all at once. What we want to do is deliver a smaller, useful component and then gather feedback and iterate on that as we go. So we decided to utilize some low-code tooling where we could. I mentioned the Automation Centre sort of specializes in this low-code tooling in the Home Office. And so I know that when I mention low-code to a lot of developers, they sort of, not too sure of it. They think, is it taking our jobs? Is it, a bit too simplistic? We sort of take the approach with low-code that we can utilize it where we're doing repeatable patterns. So in this case, we used Microsoft's Power Platform, in particular Power Apps and Power Automate. We could spin up a database and we could spin up a UI very, very quickly using these tools. Now, this service that we had to build is actually quite simple in that we're taking data from local authorities, we're doing some computation on it, and then we're spitting out some figures at the end for how much we need to pay these local authorities. So the UI, it was really just a case working tool. Complexity was more to do with the calculations. So that's why we chose to use Power Apps to spin up the UI, Power Automate to do some of the data ingestion and things like that. And we then sort of started to use Power Automate for this calculation logic. And one of the key things at the Home Office that we focus on is failing fast, but also being able to be given the scope to try things. So I won't lie to you and say it went totally smoothly. What we did discover using Power Automate was that actually the volume of data and the complexity of the calculations was slightly beyond the limitations of Power Automate. And this is one of the benefits of delivering things incrementally. We sort of established that quite early on. We pivoted, so we decided to sort of abstract our logic. We wrote it in C# and then put that into a serverless compute function in Azure. So all of this is done with really close contact with QAT as well. So we're making sure that every little bit we deliver is going from a development environment to a test environment. The QAT team are able to raise any problems that they find in there, feedback to us, and we could make sure that we sort of fix bugs and things before we promoted it to the production environment. So that was sort of like a very quick nutshell of a project that I've worked on, but it's really important. You'll see the slogan on here, it matters more here. We're working on projects that really are affecting people's lives, and whether that's holidaymakers coming back from the UK through the border gates, or in this case, it's vulnerable children there in the UK without any adults. So you really do make a difference on the projects you're working on. And one of the things I really enjoy about the Home Office is that there's often situations happening in the news and I can directly see the impact on my job. So my job changes to adapt to whatever's happening around the world and around the UK as well. So as I say, that was a very sort of like nutshell of one project. On the next slide, I've got a bit about engineering opportunities, because what I want to make clear is that although I've just talked about a very specific project and we utilize low code and a little bit of C# and some serverless, across the engineering function in the Home Office, there are so many different technologies, tools, and stacks out there. I'm fairly convinced there's a bit of something for everybody. So the bread and butter, probably the majority, uses Java with a React Node.js front end. But that's certainly not to say that's all we work in. There's some .NET projects around. I've mentioned Azure already. AWS we use quite heavily. Some Oracle Cloud, which I know is less common. I've got Azure written there again. So some of the services we use in Azure, I mentioned Function Apps. We've used Logic Apps, which is another sort of like low-code tool. I've also worked on projects where we're developing chatbots in Teams using Azure Bot Services. The whole variety of sort of like Azure services we use, as well as AWS. We've also got an innovation lab. So they focus on rapid prototyping, trying things out with new tech. So I'm sure you've heard all about sort of AI and the advances that's happening there. So they're focusing at the moment on large language models, AI, machine learning, and how we can use some of these new developments to our advantage to improve some Home Office systems or even new systems that we previously sort of couldn't build, but now generative AI maybe makes possible. I've mentioned the Automation Centre as well. So we use SharePoint quite heavily. We're working with a huge user base across the Home Office, and so SharePoint is a really great way to sort of provide a user interface that non-engineering community can use. That's not to say we're doing simple things with it. We've got some quite complex case working systems that are working from SharePoint as well. Power BI, so data services and analytics, is another team. There's lots of operational teams out there that we've got all this data and they're just crying out to be able to see it in a usable way. So Power BI is also used quite a lot. And lastly, I've put Python there. So there are some teams, and it's becoming more common, the use of Python, particularly in the innovation lab. So that's by no means an exhaustive list. There's all sorts out there, and I could go on forever. But I just want to make it clear to you that there's so much opportunity. And if you're sat there thinking, okay, I'm a C#.NET developer, but it sounds like it's more Java, we've got learning paths in place. So if you've got that experience in a different language, come to us. We can get you on a project. We can put you on a learning path. We're all about upskilling. I mean, Sabir mentioned the CPDs that we do as well. There's loads of engineering opportunities and learning opportunities. And I think that's it from me. So I'll pass back to you, Alice.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Aaron. Next, we are going to hear from Amra and Alice from the recruitment team at the Home Office. So Amra is an experienced lead technical recruiter within the engineering teams, leading on in identifying suitable engineering specialists to join the Home Office. And we also have Alice, who is a lead technical recruiter within the quality assurance and testing area of the Home Office. Amra and Alice, I'm going to hand over to you.
Thank you, Alice. Specifically, Amra and I will be covering, can you go on to the next slide? Sorry, where to find jobs at the Home Office, the application process, and interviews at the Home Office. Next slide, please, Alice. Thank you. So this slide is an illustration of our careers website, which can be found at careers.homeoffice.gov.uk. It is also showing the civil service job site. If you visit our careers website, you can learn more about who we are, including interesting blogs and a day in the life. You will also find information on our journey, our benefits, the professions and portfolios we recruit for, our locations, campaigns we are running, and advice on the application process. So there's lots of really useful information there. If you go to the civil service job site, you can search for our open positions. You just need to select digital for the job role and Home Office for the location. Can I have the next slide, please, Alice? So this slide shows our Home Office LinkedIn page, which are quite self-explanatory, but the URLs are detailed at the bottom of the slide, so please visit to find out more about life at the Home Office and career information. Could I have the next slide, please, Alice? Thank you. So here are some of the platforms we use, which include Twitter, LinkedIn, Indeed, Slack, and Croydon and Sheffield Digital. All employees in engineering and QAT have access to paid-for learning platforms, including O'Reilly and Cloud Academy. And we also offer paid-for access to BCS and the option to become chartered. So I'll now hand over to Amra.
Thank you. Thank you, Alice. So now I'm going to be talking to you about the application process. So Alice, if you could move on to the next slide. So one of the things about working at the Home Office is that we work on things that require security clearance, and that's because of the high security projects that we work on, and that's a real reason why it's very important that we follow these particular points that I mentioned on the slide. Number one is that you've lived in the UK for at least 5 years. That's so that you can pass through our security level of vetting, and before that it has to be obtained before you can be offered an employment at the Home Office. So it's very important that you pass security clearance at that level. We don't unfortunately provide sponsorship for individuals through the skilled work sponsorship work visa, or in general we just don't do any kind of sponsorship. So just so that you're all aware, there obviously are particular cases which are individual cases, so it's important that you check with whoever's recruiting for that particular job for that role, because we have in the past been able to do specific business cases for special circumstances. So please be aware that that is something that is possible, but it's obviously based on a case-by-case basis. Ellis, could I have the next slide, please? So basically, if you're fantastic, you passed everything, you've done really well, you're through to the vetting residency requirements, what we want you to know is, how do you apply next? One of the things we ask for is that you put in your employment history in your application, as well as previous experience and skills, as well as a personal statement. The personal statement is very particular to the civil service. It's also very particular to the Home Office. It's a very important part. In this personal statement, it's very important that you highlight, based on your skills, where and how you've used those particular skills that are in the job description. So it's a very important part of the process. As well as that, all of our CVs are anonymized. So it's very important that you're aware of that, so that you make sure you state your experience and that we are fully aware of that when you apply. Can I have the next slide, please, Ellis? Thank you. So just going back to what I mentioned, it's always important to tailor your application to the role that you're applying for. Now, please don't put off by having to check every single tick box. That's not the purpose of what we want you to do when you look at a job application. There may be things that you may not tick, but as long as you show and demonstrate, you know, where you've learned those skills or developed those skills, just make sure that you tailor your CV and your application to support that particular role. Can we move on to the next slide? So I'm just going to pass you back to the lovely Alice, who's going to talk you through the process now, once you've gone through and you've applied.
Thank you, Amra. So here's an image which gives a simplified view of our recruitment process. We typically advertise our roles for 2 weeks. And I think it's important to mention again that the personal statement, which forms part of your application, is very significant and carries more weight than your CV. It should outline where you have experience of the essential skills in the job description and should be as close to the specified word count as possible. Once the advert closes, applications are sifted and results issued. Some technical roles require technical exercise to be completed before the interview. As you can see, the next stage is interview and then offer. Could I have the next slide, please, Alice? So next we'll move on to Home Office interviews. Can I have the next slide again, please, Alice? Thank you. So in QAT and engineering, our interviews are 1 hour via Teams. Interviews are competency-based, and we recommend using the STAR method to plan your answers to the interview questions. The interview panel will be looking for you to demonstrate the essential experience and behaviours detailed in the job description by recounting past work experiences. We recommend familiarising yourself with the job description before your interview so you can be prepared for these questions. The STAR method lets you create a simple and easy to follow story that brings difficult situations and resolutions to life. So for those who are unfamiliar with this method, here's a breakdown of what each of the 4 parts of the technique mean. So situation, you need to set the scene of the story by giving context and background of the situation. If you're asked about teamwork, your response should include the project details, who you were collaborating with, and when you undertook the project. Task, describe your exact role of responsibility in the situation. Make sure that the panel know what you were specifically assigned to, rather than what everyone did. Action, this is probably the most important part of the story. Here you explain how you handled the difficult situation or conquered the problem. Say whether you did it alone or did it together as a team. What you're trying to communicate is your assessment of the situation and your response to the problem, as well as how you got the team involved. Result, you should close the story by stating the positive outcome of your actions and what lessons you've learned. If possible, quantify the results and show the effects of your actions. I'll now hand back to the lovely Amra. Over to you, Amra.
Thank you, Alice. So thank you very much, Alice. So this slide is around how we measure and assess within the software engineering community. We use something called the SAFIR framework. SAFIR stands for Skills Framework for the Information Age, and it's our way in order to assess how your skills may be assessed with currently people who are already at the Home Office, and how we sort of move people also within the Home Office. In your interview, we'll also use this framework as well to assess your technical ability and capability. So if you look below, you'll also notice that there is a link. This is actually something you can go and have a look at online at the moment. It's the safir-online.org website, where you'll be able to look in a lot more detail as to what is expected at each level. If you look to the right, you'll notice that this is an example of something that we would use in a job description, and below you'll see 6 bullet points. Those 6 bullet points are an example of the areas in which we will be assessing for a particular role. In this case, we will be looking at application support, data management, program software development, software design, so systems integration and build, and testing. And this is the way that you will be assessed through your interview. As you can see, it's under level 4, so that would be what we would be expecting of someone of this level for this particular role. So as in each role, there'll be different levels. So I'd say the best thing for you to do is probably do some research, to have a look at the website that is listed here as well. So yeah, could we move on? Thank you, Alice. So this kind of leads on to my next part, which is if you're unsure about anything at all about the process, don't be afraid to reach out to the recruitment team or someone from the profession. And, you know, we're always here to help. So if you have any questions, please do let us know. Thanks, Alice. Can we move on? So the good news is we're actually hiring. So we have some roles coming up, and what I'm going to do now is pass you on to Alice, who will tell you the roles that will be upcoming in our areas.
Thank you, Emma. Could we have the next slide, please, Alice? So we have 7 QAT roles going live on the 30th of October, and these are going to be on our HMPO portfolio. So please feel free to reach out to me to find out more about these roles, or you can also apply directly yourself on our CS Jobs website. There are going to be 2 QAT lead engineers to be based in Glasgow, London or Manchester, and 5 senior test engineers, which are going to be based in Glasgow, London, Southport or Manchester. We also have 24 engineering roles, which should be going live on the 31st of October, and you can see them detailed here on the slide. I've also highlighted some of the technologies we work with here, just to give you a little overview on that. Could I have the next slide, please, Alice? So here's a slide which just outlines some of our employee benefits. And we've got some fantastic benefits. A great benefit is our pension, which ranges from 26.6% to 30.3%. I think it's one of the best pensions that I've ever come across. So it's really, really positive thing about working here. We also offer very flexible working conditions, including part-time, compressed hours, flexi time, hybrid working, remote working, and job sharing. You can see the full benefits if you visit our website. The link should be on this slide, but it's not, so we'll share it after this webinar. And that's it from me. Thank you. Thanks, Alice.
Fantastic. Sorry, I was struggling to find my unmute button there, but thank you so much for the 3 presentations. We'll now get into our Q&A section of the webinar. So we've had some pre-submitted questions. One that's just come that I can answer myself. Will I be able to rewatch the presentation? Yes. We are recording the presentation and we'll share it on our YouTube channel. I think the Home Office will distribute as well, so no problem there. I've got one potentially for Amra and Alice around remote working. What is the breakdown time spent between working in the office and working remotely? What is the Home Office's remote working policy?
I can answer that, Alice. Do you want me to answer that? So 40% of the time will be spent in the office. So that has been something that, you know, we do stress that, you know, if people do want to work from home, they can, but 40% of the time will need to be in the office. That equates to about 2 days at the moment as it stands. So 2 days in the office and 3 days from home.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Amra. And I think this another question potentially for Amra and Alice again. In regards to the security clearing vetting process, what is the sort of rough timeline of that happening, like the time frame of that vetting process?
So Alice, do you want to take that, or should I don't mind.
Yeah, I'm fine to say that. We typically say sort of a minimum of 6 weeks, so yeah, sort of 6 to 8 weeks to get through the clearance process.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And just a reminder for the registrants, get your questions into the Q&A and the Slido function now, and we can ask those questions. We did have some pre-submitted questions as well. That it's actually a question I want to ask all of the presenters. We will start with Samir. Samir, what's the most enjoyable part of your role at working at the Home Office, or what's your favourite thing about working at the Home Office?
Oh, this is the question that a lot of my friends also keep asking me. So if I have to put it in very simple terms, when I finish my day, every day, I have the feeling that I have made that difference to the UK as a country, to this society, because the work that I am doing, I can see that in action every day. At airports, at the police, you know, whenever they stop someone, the system that they are using is something that we have delivered. The Home Office has its central ERP system that keeps the whole function running in the background. Again, when I see that it is working normally, we have enhanced it, I see that difference on a daily basis. So that's the main thing. I was in private sector, as you mentioned earlier, for nearly 21 plus years. Yes, I did enjoy that. I'm not saying it is bad. It was fun working there. But the reason why I moved to civil service is possibly the point that I was always thinking on. Can I make the difference that is tangible? And this is where I see that on a daily basis. And that's what keeps me going. I have that satisfaction every evening when I shut down my laptop that, okay, I have something to look forward to when I wake up next morning.
Definitely. And I can see that the impact that you have on millions of people's life is, it must be a very rewarding feeling. And I'm guessing you all feel like that. Aaron, I'm going to ask the same question to you, and Amra and Alice, you've got time to prep your answers as well. Aaron, what's your favorite thing about working at the Home Office?
Hopefully I don't steal Samir, like Samir has stolen my answer. I'll try and think of another one. I think for me, I've worked in public sector as well, and it's all about generating profit, improving the bottom line. Whereas here, because you're making a difference to people's lives, there's a bigger focus on getting things done properly and not just rushing it out the door to make a sale. And so you're working with sort of experts from a variety of professions. I mentioned earlier, as well as Samir in the QAT community, we've got interaction designers, content designers, accessibility consultants, making sure that our services are accessible for people with disabilities. It's about doing things the right way and taking the time to make sure that things are correct. And I find that a really, really enjoyable aspect. As well as sort of, I talk about working with a wide variety of professions. You're also working with a wide variety of people. The diversity at the Home Office is excellent. It's the best place I've worked easily for diversity and inclusion as well. So that's a really good aspect for me as well.
Fantastic. Thank you, Aaron. And Amra?
Yeah, I've got two examples actually. The first one, I actually made an offer not long ago to a candidate, and it was the joy that candidate had that made my day, and it made his day. He said that, just working with us has, I'd never experienced someone who felt so excited to come and work for us, and that was a great sort of feeling, and that makes my job worthwhile. And the second example was we do a lot of direct sourcing as well at the Home Office, and I had a candidate who actually progressed and moved within the year quite rapidly into different roles and sort of moved up. And that was a great sort of feeling to see that, we'd reached out to someone and then they actually had moved and progressed. So, there's so much here that is worthwhile doing, and, it's a great place to work. So, yeah, that's me.
Thank you so much, Amra. And finally, Alice.
Everyone's stolen all my ideas.
Sorry, Alice.
I just want to mirror what Amra said. I've never worked somewhere where people are so happy to receive an offer from us. It really does change people's life, and just to see the joy that you give people, it's really, it's really, really rewarding. Again, it's the diverse range of people that we get to work with. We're all really different, which results in such different views and ideas. So I'm learning so much here. So that's really, it's really, really good. And I get to interact with people that I wouldn't normally interact with. And yeah, it's just, as I was trying to think of different ideas, I just want to mirror as well, like it's recruiting people that having such an impact on projects in the UK. So yeah, I think we're all on the same page, but that's it for me.
Thank you. That was fantastic. Thank you, Alice. Potentially a question for Aaron here. So we've come through, appreciate the mentions of like AI and low code. How high is the demand for these types of skill sets within the Home Office?
So we're currently going through a process at the moment of, we want to make sure that where we're using AI, although AI is not new, obviously the advances in it, particularly in the last 12 months, have sped up exponentially. So we want to make sure that we're using AI responsibly. We understand the impact that it has on not only people internal in the Home Office that are working on it, but also the impact it could have on external stakeholders as well. So we don't want to be having a computer make decisions about people's lives where it can get it wrong. So we are sort of growing in that area. We've got our innovation lab that are focusing at the moment on looking at these tools, potential use cases, but there's also a wider bit of work in government going about how we use this tech responsibly. So my only advice would be keep an eye on the civil service jobs website and the other social media pages. You'll see jobs coming through. There's things like Python developers. Python is quite heavily linked with AI. I've definitely seen some Python roles going out online at some point. So keep an eye. It is growing, but at the same time, we're making sure we're doing it the right way.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Aaron. Amra and Alice, I think you covered this a little bit in your presentations, but we'll just touch on this again in regards to the security clearance. Is the applicant meant to have security clearance as a prerequisite to applying, or is this done by yourselves at the Home Office?
Well, if they already have the clearance, then that makes the process a lot easier. Sometimes, because clearances tend to last for about 10 years, the majority of cases. So we can get that transferred from wherever they are. However, if they don't, then we will start the process from scratch and they will go through security clearance with us.
Perfect, thank you. And off the back of that, is there a waiting period before reapplying for a different or similar role if you are unsuccessful at the interview stage of the process? Amra or Alice?
Do you want me to go, Amra?
Yeah, okay.
No, we do recommend that if you've applied and been unsuccessful, if you do look at the feedback and understand why you've been unsuccessful, and try and improve on that before you apply again. But there's no time limit before applying for another similar role. So no.
And
hopefully that's some good advice.
Just to add as well, you need SC must be held by the government department, and then it can be transferred to the Home Office. People can't get clearance if they're not in another government department, basically. Yeah.
Thank you for clarifying that, Amra.
No problem.
I'm probably going to be picking on you two quite a lot with these questions, but I think they're very relevant for both of you. How does the Home Office support you with learning and development in your field? And Aaron, if you want to touch on this, and Samir, if you've had any learning and development opportunities, but we'll start with Amra, if you want to give us an overview of that.
So I think around learning and development, was it Alice? So I know that different departments have different ways in which they sort of support people when they join. I know that that's a very important part of their development. So I'm guessing, Samir, do you want to add, probably, if you know sort of things that you've been put on or courses you've been put on, perhaps?
Sure.
Yeah.
So I will answer this question in two parts. So first is the technical side of it. So in various different roles that we have in digital data and technology department within Home Office, by role and by skill, there are various trainings that are available. Some of them are available via O'Reilly platform. Some of them can be arranged as external training providers who will deliver those trainings. But that is very nicely and properly managed, working with each staff member, where we identify their needs, identify their aspirations, and then put the overall professional development plan together. This also helps them aiming for the next level in their career journey. So if someone is, example, test analyst, if he or she wants to be a senior test analyst, what is the pathway? What trainings will be needed? If the employee already demonstrates certain skills, then that training may not be required. Something else may help them. So that's the technical side of it. Then there is the soft skill side of it, because the communication is key to everything, as we know, right? How much ever excellent the technical skills may be, if the person needs to grow up in the career in terms of professional growth, the communication is the key, right? So there are courses where we do soft skills training. There are mentoring opportunities that we have. So I do mentor a number of my own direct reports to make sure they learn from what I do. I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm not saying that I know answers to everything, but at least they can come to me at any time. They can shadow me, They can join me in various key meetings with, say, senior responsible officer, when I am communicating with them, how I am structuring my communication, how I'm making sure they understand. So these all come as part and parcel of your civil service job. And the last point that I want to add is there are two groups, if I can say, within civil service. One is called anything up to the senior civil servant or SCS grade, and then the SCSS, right? So typically SCS are responsible for a department, or sometimes they are answerable to ministers. So if you are at a level where you are aspiring to be the next SCS, or you want to apply for the SCS roles, then there are very focused development courses which focus on multiple different aspects. Because when you are looking at interacting with parliament, interacting with ministerial offices, you certainly need a very different mindset, slightly different skill set. And that also has a clearly defined training available for that. We also call it as Future Leader Scheme. I am actually going through that process right now. Whether I will qualify at the end, I don't know, but I have the full and open access and opportunity to apply for that. And then that process also helps me understand, oh, maybe this is the area where I need to develop before I can apply for these roles, right? So it's a continuous learning process. Hand on heart, this is one of the best employer that I have seen. And hope that helps summarize everything.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Samir. And Aaron, one for you here. Obviously, you've mentioned the technical, sort of the tech stacks and the technical skills needed within the engineering roles. If you were interviewing for someone for your team, what soft skills would you look for? Like, what would make a candidate stand out if you're interviewing them from a soft skill perspective?
That's a good one. So that sort of depends on what level developer role or engineer role you're applying for. So if we're interviewing somebody that's maybe going for a junior or an associate level role, we're looking for somebody that's keen to learn, has shown sort of an interest in gaining skills, whether that's through formal academic routes or self-learning. So myself, I didn't go to university. I was sort of a self-taught developer, and I joined some local coding things. So yeah, sort of like a passion to learn is key, particularly at the junior grades. If you're applying for more senior roles, we'd be looking for soft skills such as management, coaching. Can you take those junior roles and sort of advance their profession and increase their skill level to get them to be the next generation of seniors? So yeah, passion for learning and passion for coaching are probably the two opposite ends of that scale.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Aaron. And potentially a question for all of you again. Is there any misconceptions that you'd like to dispel about working in the civil service that you've probably heard before and that are completely not true? Is there any? This is a sort of a platform to sort of dispel those misconceptions. Samir, you look eager. I feel like you've got a couple to list off. So we'll go
Yes. The reason I'm smiling at this is exactly what I had in my mind when a recruitment consultant or headhunter reached out to me. And when the person said, oh, this is a senior role that's available in civil service, home office, are you interested? And I said, no, I'm not. And he said, why? My response to him, I clearly remember, is, oh, it's going to be so much of bureaucracy. It's going to be some old technology, green screen that I'll be working on. No, I don't want to get there. I'm happy in my banking and insurance and all that. And then he said, okay, if you think so, it is not the case. And then he explained to me a few bits and I said, sounds interesting. And then he told me, okay, if you want to explore further, you should at least apply. That way, if you get through to interview, you can ask all these questions that you have. And I said, okay, that's fine. I will do that. So I was reluctant, again, very honestly. Even at the interview stage, I did mention to the person interviewing that I'm not very sure if I will fit in this work environment. And gladly, the interviewer told me, and he was the hiring manager himself. And he told me, that's fine. If you are selected, you should give it at least a year, and then let's see what happens. So here am I, more than 8 years now.
Perfect. Yeah. I love that. I love that origin story as well, Samir. I think so. We've got a few minutes left. Aaron, Amra, Alice, is there any other misconceptions that come to your head that you want to dispel? Aaron, I see you've come off mute. So
yeah, I can mention one quickly. I mean, as the civil service, we're politically neutral, and so you'll see a lot of news stories in the news about the Home Office and things like that. Try not to let that sway your view of the Home Office. So as the civil service, we do some really great work, protecting our citizens and things. So try to separate what you see in the news and political stories from civil service, because they are two separate things.
perfect. Thank you so much, Aaron. So unfortunately, I think we're going to have to wrap in a few minutes' time, but I just want to say a big thank you to Samir, Aaron, Amra, and Alice for joining us today and presenting and giving everyone a better insight to what it's like to work at the Home Office and the roles they have open. I just want to say a big thank you as well to the 110 plus registrants that have joined us today. Hopefully you have learned something and uncovered some truths about the Home Office that you didn't know before. I just want to remind everyone that the team at the Home Office are actively hiring right now, and as a follow-up we will provide the link to their career page where you can find a list of open positions as well as their benefits, and if you are interested in career opportunities as well, please register via the form in the email, the follow-up email, and we'll get back to you as well. But once again, Samir, Aaron, Amra, and Alice, thank you so much for joining us today. I've thoroughly enjoyed it myself as well, and here's to more in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.